Jack Mason floated in the darkness of space, his tether line connecting him to the mining ship Prospector *. The asteroid before him sparkled with valuable minerals. His laser drill cut into the rocky surface, sending small fragments drifting away in the zero gravity. "Almost done with Section 5, Tom," Jack said into his helmet mic. "This one's rich with palladium. We're going to make a nice profit." "Good work," Tom's voice crackled through the comm system. "Finish up and get back inside. Sensors are picking up some strange energy readings." Jack looked up from his work and noticed an unusual glow in the distance. It wasn't a star or another ship, at least not like any he had seen before. The glow grew larger, brighter. "Tom, are you seeing this?" Jack asked, his heart beating faster. No answer came. "Tom, Prospector *. Do you copy?" Still nothing. The light suddenly expanded, washing over Jack and his ship in a wave of blue-white energy. His suit electronics flickered and died. The tether went slack. As darkness claimed him, Jack's last thought was that he was going to die alone in the cold emptiness of space. Jack woke with a gasp. He wasn't dead. He wasn't even in his suit anymore. He lay on a smooth, hard surface that curved slightly upward at the edges, forming a bed of sorts. The room around him was white and clean, with no visible doors or windows. A soft hum filled the air. "Where am I?" he whispered, his voice sounding strange in the quiet room. As if in answer, a section of wall slid open. Jack sat up quickly, his muscles tensing for a fight or escape. A figure stepped through the opening. It looked almost human, but not quite. Tall and slender, with pale blue skin and large, almond-shaped eyes that glowed with an inner light. The being wore what appeared to be armor, sleek and form-fitting, with symbols Jack didn't recognize etched into its surface. "You are awake. Good." The voice was female, melodic but cool. "You were easier to capture than expected." Jack swallowed hard. "Who are you? What do you want with me?" "I am Captain Lyra of the Valorian Empire," she said, studying him with those strange glowing eyes. "As for what I want, you are valuable, human. Your kind possesses unusual mental traits that are useful to us." "Where's my ship? My crewmate?" Jack demanded, standing up despite his shaking legs. Lyra tilted her head. "The other human was damaged and could not be repaired. Your vessel has been salvaged for materials." Tom was dead. The Prospector * was gone. Jack felt a wave of grief and anger. "You had no right." "Rights." Lyra seemed amused by the concept. "In the greater galaxy, rights are determined by power and value. Your species is isolated, primitive, but individually useful." She stepped closer, her movements fluid and graceful. Jack backed away until he hit the wall behind him. "You will serve as my personal assistant," Lyra continued. "Your problem-solving abilities will be put to good use. Many Valorian officials would be envious. Humans are rare acquisitions." "I'm not an acquisition," Jack said through clenched teeth. "I'm a person. I have a life, a home." "Not anymore." Lyra reached out and touched his face with cool fingers. Jack flinched, but had nowhere to go. "You belong to me now, human." Her words left him stunned, frozen in place as the reality of his situation sank in. He wasn't just lost in space. He had been hunted, captured, and claimed like an animal. Lyra turned away, seemingly satisfied with his reaction. "Rest. Tomorrow you begin your new life." She walked back to the wall, which opened for her again. "Wait," Jack called out. "How many others? How many humans have you taken?" Lyra paused at the threshold. "Enough to know your worth, not enough to draw attention from your primitive governments." She stepped through, and the wall sealed seamlessly behind her. Jack slumped to the floor, his mind racing. Earth didn't know. Nobody knew that aliens were real, that they were taking people. He was alone, possibly light years from home, claimed as property by a being from an empire he'd never heard of. But he was still alive. And as long as he was alive, there was hope. Jack looked around his featureless cell with new determination. I don't belong to anyone, he whispered to himself, and I'm going to find a way home. Days blurred together in Jack's cell. He ate the strange food they gave him, exercised to keep his strength up, and waited for a chance to escape. When the wall finally opened again, two guard-like aliens stood with Lyra. Come, she ordered. It is time you learned your place in our world. The guards fitted a metal band around Jack's wrist. It glowed blue when activated. Try to run, and this will cause great pain, Lyra explained. But behave, and you will see wonders your kind has only dreamed of. They led Jack through long hallways with curved ceilings. Other aliens moved aside when they passed. Some stared at Jack with obvious curiosity. Where are we going? Jack asked. Home, Lyra said. My ship has completed its mission. We return to Valor Prime. They entered a room with a large window. Jack's breath caught in his throat. Outside was a view of stars, and in the distance, a planet with 3 moons. This is a spaceship. Jack pressed his hands against the window. How far from Earth are we? Far enough that your people will never find you, Lyra said. We are approaching the center of the Valorian Empire. As they drew closer to the planet, Jack saw it was covered with gleaming cities. Thousands of ships moved in organized patterns around it. It looked like something from a science fiction movie, but it was real. The ship docked at a floating station above the planet. Jack was led through more hallways, then into a transport pod that descended to the surface. When the doors opened, Jack found himself in a city of impossible beauty. Towers of crystal and metal reached so high they disappeared into the clouds. Flying vehicles zipped between buildings. Waterfalls flowed down the sides of structures, collecting in pools where plant life bloomed in vibrant colors. But Jack quickly noticed something else. Not all beings moved freely. Many wore wristbands like his and followed Valorians who clearly controlled them. What are they? Jack asked, pointing to a group of short, furry creatures cleaning a fountain. Meraks, Lyra answered. Good workers, but simple-minded. Unlike humans, who can solve complex problems. They arrived at a massive building with a domed roof. Inside, Jack saw luxury beyond anything on Earth. The floors shimmered like they were made of liquid metal. The walls changed colors slowly, creating a peaceful effect. This is my home, Lyra said. And now yours. In one large room, Jack found what shocked him most. 3 humans, 2 men and a woman, stood waiting. They wore fine clothes in the Valorian style and had the same wristbands as Jack. These are my other humans, Lyra explained. They will help train you. One man stepped forward. I'm Robert. Been here 8 years. He looked resigned, tired in his eyes despite his healthy appearance. Listen to what she says. It's better that way. I won't accept this, Jack whispered fiercely. We're not pets or tools. The woman shook her head. I thought the same once. I'm Emily. 5 years here. Earth thinks I died in a boating accident. The third human, older with gray hair, said nothing but watched Jack with sad eyes. You cannot escape, Lyra said, clearly hearing their whispers. The Valorian Empire spans 50 star systems. We have monitored Earth for centuries, taking only those few humans whose disappearance would not raise alarms. Jack's mind raced with this new information. How many of us have you taken? Perhaps 300 across our empire, Lyra said. Each of you serves an important Valorian. It is an honor. It's slavery, Jack said. Lyra's eyes flashed. It is the natural order. The strong use the skills of the weak. But serve well, and your life will be comfortable. She turned to leave, then stopped. Tomorrow, you begin your real work. Rest now. When she was gone, Jack looked at his fellow captives. Has anyone ever escaped? Robert laughed without humor. Where would you go? We're not even in the same galaxy as Earth anymore. Jack stared out the window at the alien city stretching to the horizon. He had never felt so small, so far from home. But something inside him refused to give up. "There's always a way," he said quietly. "We just haven't found it yet." After a week in Lyra's home, Jack had learned the daily routine. Wake up, eat the strange but not unpleasant food, then wait for orders. The other humans kept their distance, afraid to seem too friendly with the newcomer. One morning, Lyra entered Jack's room earlier than usual. Her typically calm face showed signs of worry. "Come with me," she ordered. "There is a problem that requires your skills." Jack followed her to a transport pod. They zoomed through the city, then up to a massive structure floating in the sky. "This is our main defense center," Lyra explained. "Something is wrong with our fleet ships. 3 have failed in the past month." The transport stopped at a large hangar filled with sleek spacecraft. Workers rushed around, many looking stressed. "Why bring me here?" Jack asked. "Our engineers cannot find the cause of the failures," Lyra said. "Human minds work differently. You see patterns we miss." A tall Valorian with markings on his armor that suggested high rank approached them. He looked at Jack with disgust. "Captain Lyra, you bring your pet to our most secure facility." His voice was cold. "Commander Dren, my human has expertise in systems engineering," Lyra replied. "The High Council approved my request." Dren glared at Jack. "If it interferes with anything beyond its assignment, it will be terminated." After Dren walked away, Jack whispered, "Friendly guy." Lyra's mouth twitched in what might have been almost a smile. "Commander Dren believes humans are too unpredictable to be trusted. Do not prove him right." They entered a room filled with glowing displays. Jack recognized them as ship schematics, though the technology was far beyond Earth's. These 3 ships stopped responding to commands during routine missions, Lyra explained. The last one nearly crashed into a populated area. Jack studied the displays. Though he couldn't read the Valorian language, he could follow the flow of systems, the connections between parts. "Can you show me the actual failure points?" he asked. A technician brought up more detailed schematics. Jack noticed something odd. The point of failure was different in each ship, but the pattern of system shutdown was identical. "It's not a mechanical failure," Jack said after an hour of study. "The ships are being given false commands. Look here." He pointed to a section of the display. Each ship received an override signal that the system accepted as legitimate. The Valorian technicians looked at each other in alarm. "That is impossible," one said. "Our command protocols are unbreakable." Jack shook his head. "Nothing is unbreakable. On Earth, we call this hacking." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "You are suggesting sabotage." "I'm suggesting someone found a backdoor into your systems," Jack explained. "A way to send commands that look real but aren't." Commander Dren returned, listening to Jack's theory with growing anger. "Ridiculous. Our systems cannot be compromised," he insisted. "This human knows nothing." "Let me test something," Jack said to Lyra, ignoring Dren. "Do you have a simulator for these systems?" Lyra nodded to a technician, who brought up a simulation program. Jack spent the next 2 hours trying different inputs, working from his knowledge of Earth systems, but adapting to the alien technology. Finally, he found it, a tiny flaw in the authentication protocol that could be exploited. "Here," Jack said, pointing to his discovery. "This is how they're doing it." Even Dren fell silent as the implications became clear. Who would have the knowledge to exploit such a weakness? Lyra asked. "The next collective," Dren said grimly. "They have been probing our defenses for years." As the Valorians discussed this new threat, Jack quietly memorized what he was seeing. Star maps, fleet positions, and most importantly, the location of Earth relative to Valorian space. The information might be useful if he ever got a chance to escape. Lyra noticed his careful attention. When they were alone again in the transport, she said, "You have proven valuable today, human." "My name is Jack," he reminded her. "Not human." "Jack," she said, as if testing the name. You have shown intelligence that saved many lives. That is unexpected. For the first time, Jack saw something in Lyra's eyes beyond cold ownership, a flicker of respect. There's a lot you don't know about humans, Jack said. We're full of surprises. In the weeks following his breakthrough with the fleet systems, Jack found his status had changed. His wristband was still in place, but Lyra gave him more freedom to move around her residence. He was allowed to work in a special room filled with technical equipment where he continued to improve the Valorian defense systems. One evening, Lyra entered his workroom. Instead of her usual armor, she wore a simple blue robe. She looked tired. "Your work has impressed the High Council," she said. "Commander Dren still distrusts you, but others see your value." Jack looked up from the display he was studying. "Glad to be useful," he said, not hiding his sarcasm. Lyra sat down across from him. "There is something you should know, Jack. Something few outside the High Council are aware of." Her serious tone caught his attention. "What is it?" "The Valorian Empire is dying," she said simply. Jack stared at her, waiting for more. "For centuries, we engineered our genetics to create perfect soldiers, perfect leaders, perfect workers," she continued. "We removed what we considered flaws, strong emotions, unpredictable creativity, the chaos of natural evolution." She paused. "We went too far." "What do you mean?" Jack asked, genuinely curious now. "Our birth rates have fallen to almost nothing. Those children who are born are weaker than previous generations. We face extinction within 300 years. Jack tried to process this information. "That's why you collect other species. To do the work you can't." Lyra nodded. "Partly. But there is more." She tapped a control on the wall, and a holographic image appeared between them, a DNA strand, though not human or Valorian. "We have been searching for compatible genetic material to revitalize our species. Most races we encounter are too different. But humans," her glowing eyes fixed on Jack, "your kind has remarkable adaptive genetics. Flexible, resilient." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "You're harvesting us for breeding." "Not exactly," Lyra said. "We need to understand how your minds work, how your genetics allow for such creativity and adaptation without degrading over generations." She stood and walked to a window overlooking the city. "I selected you specifically, Jack. Your psychological profile showed exceptional problem-solving abilities and mental flexibility." "You've been studying us for that long?" Jack asked. "Psychological profiles." "For centuries. We observe before we collect." She turned back to him. "Most Valorians see humans as simple tools. I see potential salvation." Jack struggled with this new information. The Valorians weren't just conquerors, they were desperate. "Why tell me this?" "Because I need your willing cooperation," Lyra said. "Forced compliance only gives us partial results. I need you to understand what is at stake." "For you, maybe," Jack said. "What's in it for humans? For Earth? If we die, the power vacuum would trigger war across 50 star systems," Lyra explained. "Races far less benevolent than Valorians would fill that void. Some would simply destroy Earth rather than study it." Jack laughed bitterly. "So it's helpless or someone worse will come along? That's your offer?" "I offer truth," Lyra said, "and a chance to shape what comes next." She moved toward the door, then paused. "The rigidity that is killing us came from our desire for perfect order. What we engineered out, adaptability, emotional connection, creative thinking, these are the very things your species excels at." Her voice softened slightly. "Perhaps what we need is not to own humans, but to learn from them." After she left, Jack sat alone, thinking. The Valorians weren't invincible after all. They had made themselves vulnerable through their own arrogance, and in that vulnerability, Jack sensed opportunity, not just for escape, but perhaps for something more. "Salvation," he whispered to the empty room. But on whose terms? 3 days after Lyra's revelation, alarms blared throughout the city. Jack rushed to the window and saw flashes of light in the sky. Ships were battling above the planet. "What's happening?" he asked Robert, who ran into the room. "The next collective," Robert explained quickly. They'd finally launched a full attack. Armed Valorian guards entered the residence, moving with urgent purpose. "All humans must go to the shelter level," one ordered. Captain Lyra's instructions. Jack and the other humans were led down to a secure underground area. Many other non-Valorian species were also being brought in, all wearing control bands like Jack's. "They're protecting their property," Emily said bitterly as they huddled in the large shelter. Jack watched the guards, noticing their nervous movements. "No, they're scared. This attack must be serious." Hours passed. The shelter shook several times from distant explosions. Jack paced restlessly, thinking about Lyra's words about the next collective. If they defeated the Valorians, would Earth be in even greater danger? Suddenly, part of the ceiling collapsed as something blasted through from above. Dust filled the air. When it cleared, Jack saw strange beings pouring into the shelter. Tall, insect-like creatures with 4 arms and metallic exoskeletons. The necks had breached the defenses. Guards fought back, but were quickly overwhelmed. The necks moved through the room, grabbing certain species and killing any Valorians they found. Jack pulled Emily and Robert behind a fallen column. "We need to get out of here." "Where?" Emily asked, terrified. "We don't even know the way to the surface." Jack spotted a maintenance tunnel across the room. "There. Come on." They ran, dodging fighting and debris. As they reached the tunnel, Jack heard a familiar voice cry out in pain. He turned and saw Lyra, trapped under a fallen beam, a next soldier approaching her with a weapon raised. Jack hesitated only for a second. "Get to the tunnel," he told the others. Then he grabbed a metal rod from the debris and ran toward Lyra. The next didn't see him coming. Jack swung the rod with all his strength, striking the creature's leg joint. It screeched and turned, but Jack was already pulling at the beam trapping Lyra. "Help me," he shouted at her. Together, they managed to shift the beam enough for her to pull free. The next recovered and lunged at them. Lyra, despite her injury, moved with lightning speed, drawing a hidden weapon and firing. The next fell, its exoskeleton smoking. "This way." Jack pulled Lyra toward the maintenance tunnel where Robert and Emily waited. "Why did you help me?" Lyra asked, limping beside him. "You could have escaped." "I didn't help you because I belong to you," Jack said firmly. "I helped you because it was the right thing to do." Lyra stared at him, clearly confused by this concept. They reached the tunnel, and Robert helped support Lyra's injured side. The group navigated dark passages until they reached a small command center. A handful of Valorian officers worked frantically at control panels. They looked up in shock when the group entered. One reached for a weapon when he saw Jack supporting Lyra. "Stand down," Lyra ordered. "This human saved my life when he could have left me to die." The officer lowered his weapon, confused. "Status report," Lyra demanded, wincing as she sat down. "The Necks have taken the main defense grid," an officer reported. "They're after our genetic database. If they get it, they'll know our weaknesses." Lyra looked at Jack. Something changed in her expression. "Jack, I need your help. Not as my property, but as an ally." The word seemed difficult for her to say. "An ally," Jack repeated. "That means we're equals." "Yes," Lyra said, making a decision that clearly went against everything she had been taught. "I propose an alliance between us. Help us defeat the Necks, and if we survive, I will declare you free. I will help you establish contact with Earth, not as masters, but as potential partners." The other Valorians looked shocked at this unprecedented offer. Jack considered her words carefully. "And the other humans." "Them too," Lyra agreed. "All of you." Jack extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. After a moment's hesitation, Lyra took it. "Partners," Jack said firmly. Now let's stop the Nex. News of Lyra's alliance with Jack spread quickly through the remaining Valorian forces. Many younger officers supported this new approach, but the High Council was furious. "This is treason," Commander Dren shouted during an emergency meeting. "Humans are property, not allies." "The old ways are failing us," Lyra argued, standing tall despite her bandaged leg. "We face extinction because we cannot adapt. Jack and the other humans have shown us another path." The council chamber erupted in angry debate. Jack watched from the side, where he stood with Robert and Emily. Their control bands had been removed, a physical symbol of their new status. "They can't accept change," Emily whispered, "even to save themselves." "Some can," Jack said, nodding toward the younger Valorians who stood with Lyra. Commander Dren slammed his fist on the table. "Enough. The humans will be contained, and Captain Lyra will be arrested for endangering the Empire." Guards moved toward Lyra, but many Valorian officers stepped between them. "The Nex still control half the city," a young officer named Trell said. "We need new tactics, new thinking. The humans can help." Dren's face darkened with rage. "This is the beginning of the end. Remove them all." More guards entered, weapons drawn. The room teetered on the edge of violence. "Stop." Jack stepped forward. All eyes turned to him. "While you fight each other, the Nex grow stronger. This is exactly what they want." "The human speaks truth," Trell said. "We must focus on the real enemy." Jack continued. "On Earth, we have a saying: united we stand, divided we fall. The Nex are counting on your division." Dren sneered. What would a primitive human know of interstellar conflict? "Enough to recognize a failing strategy," Jack replied calmly. "The Valorians have conquered through strength and control, but holding an empire together requires cooperation and trust." He turned to address the whole room. "Humans aren't the only ones who can help. Every species you've collected has unique abilities. Together, we can create strategies the Nex would never expect." A strange silence fell over the room. For many Valorians, this was the first time they had truly listened to a human speaking as an equal. "I propose a temporary council," Lyra said, seizing the moment. "Representatives from each species working together to defend the city." "Impossible," Dren spat. "Non-Valorians cannot be trusted with such authority." "We're already trusting them with our lives," Jack pointed out. "Every worker, every assistant knows critical systems and locations. If they wanted to betray you, they could have done it already." The debate raged for hours, but in the end, the immediate threat of the Nex forced a compromise. A temporary alliance council was formed, with representatives from humans and 3 other species joining the Valorians. Jack coordinated with Robert and Emily to contact all humans in the city. For the first time, they gathered openly, sharing their knowledge of Valorian systems and weaknesses. "We need to fight differently," Jack explained to the mixed council. "The Nex expect Valorian tactics: direct, powerful, predictable. We'll use Earth military history to create strategies they won't anticipate." Over the next days, the Alliance forces began to push back against the Nex. Mixed teams of species worked together, using their different abilities in ways the enemy couldn't predict. Slowly, they reclaimed parts of the city. When they liberated the main communications center, Lyra found Jack monitoring the battle reports. "Your strategies are working," she said. "The Nex are retreating from the central districts." "It's not my strategy," Jack corrected her. "It's our strategy. Everyone is contributing." Lyra studied him thoughtfully. "The council is still divided. Some want to return to the old ways once this crisis ends." "And you?" Jack asked. "What do you want?" "I want our people to survive," she said simply. "And I'm beginning to see that ownership is not the path to survival." She looked out at the teams of different species working together in the command center. "Partnership might be." As if to punctuate her words, a cheer went up from the communications team. Another district had been reclaimed from the Nex. Jack smiled. Looks like the revolution has already begun. 1 month after the next attack began, the last enemy ships retreated from Valorian space. The victory had come at a great cost. Parts of the city lay in ruins, and many lives were lost. But something new had been born from the conflict. In the Grand Hall of the High Council, representatives from every species gathered for a historic meeting. Jack sat with the human delegation, watching as Lyra addressed the assembly. "The old Valorian Empire died during this war," she said, her voice carrying through the huge chamber. "Our survival came not through dominance, but through cooperation." Commander Dren and his supporters sat stone-faced. They had lost influence as the success of the alliance became undeniable. "Today we propose a new beginning," Lyra continued. "A federation of worlds where all species have a voice." Murmurs filled the hall. For many species who had lived generations under Valorian control, this seemed impossible. "As proof of our commitment to change, we will begin by contacting Earth openly," Lyra announced. "Not as conquerors, but as allies seeking friendship." Jack felt a surge of emotion. Home. After months of captivity, the thought of reconnecting with Earth seemed like a dream. The debate lasted for days. Old fears and prejudices did not die easily. But in the end, the success of their alliance against the Nex proved stronger than tradition. The Valorian High Council voted, by a narrow margin, to approve the new federation. Jack found himself appointed as the first human ambassador. His first task was to prepare for official contact with Earth. "How do you think they'll react?" Lyra asked him as they stood in the newly built communication center. "Shock, fear, wonder." Jack smiled. "Everything I felt when I first met you. When I told you that you belonged to me," Lyra said quietly, "I was wrong." "We all have to learn," Jack replied. "Even superior alien species." Lyra's eyes glowed with what Jack now recognized as amusement. The day Earth received its first official message from another intelligent species became known as First Contact Day. Jack stood beside Lyra as they appeared on screens around the world, explaining the complex truth about humanity's place in the galaxy. There was panic at first, then cautious curiosity. Earth's nations argued about how to respond, but eventually agreed to send a delegation to meet the new federation. 6 months later, Jack welcomed the first human diplomats to Valor Prime. Among them was his sister, Kate, who hugged him with tears streaming down her face. "We thought you were dead," she whispered. "I almost was," Jack said. "But I found something important out here." As the human delegation toured the city, Jack and Lyra watched from a balcony overlooking the rebuilt Central Plaza. Below them, members of a dozen different species moved freely, without control bands or masters. "Your world has handled this better than we expected," Lyra commented. "Humans adapt quickly," Jack said. "It's our greatest strength." A comfortable silence fell between them. Their relationship had evolved into something neither could have imagined when they first met. Not owner and property, not even just allies, but friends who had changed each other's worlds. "Do you remember the first words you said to me?" Jack asked. "You belong to me now, human," Lyra quoted, wincing slightly at the memory. Jack nodded. "I've been thinking about belonging. Maybe we all belong to something bigger than ourselves, to the communities we build, to the future we create together." Lyra considered this, a belonging by choice, not by force. "Exactly," Jack agreed. Below them, the Earth delegation mixed with representatives from across the Federation. New connections were being made, new possibilities born. The galaxy was changing, and humanity would help shape that change. "A new beginning," Lyra said, echoing her words from the council meeting. Jack smiled. "For all of us."